No, the four of you are still together. How much fun was it, Rahul? I mean, we are looking at one of the greatest quartets in Test history. How much fun was it?
Yeah, I think it was great memories. I think that's
Sachin Tendulkar playing it my way. उनकी आत्मकथा का आज विमोचन है इस मंच से, और राहुल द्रविड़ जिनको लेकर विवाद हुआ है ग्रेग चैपल के साथ, वो उस मंच पर मौजूद और सामने की कतार में उस समय ये लम्हा बताता है कि हिंदुस्तान के लिए खेलने वाले खिलाड़ी एक हैं, और वो सम्मान जो इस महानतम क्रिकेटर के लिए है सभी में उतना जीवंत है.
So it was a really special five to be a part of, simply because I think we challenged each other, we pushed each other, and I think personally at least, I think I learned a lot from these guys and batting with them.
Saurav and Sachin knew each other from an under 15 camp, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the camp Vasu was talking about, Vasu sir, Indore. And that was the first time I saw him, and what struck me was how much he wanted to play the game. We used to finish practice, actually Vasu sir had to take him out of the nets. He was told that there are other people who are supposed to bat. There are about 20.
Was one of them left-handed waiting for his turn?
Yeah, but there were 20 of us. Okay. And we had to get an opportunity to bat. And it was hard to take him out of the nets. And the best thing was we would finish training by afternoon. And say about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then he and Vinod would keep practicing with the tennis ball. And we would go back to the dormitories. We were staying in the stadium. So that struck me at a very young age, that how much he wanted to bat, how much he wanted to play. Then I saw him in the under 17 in Kanpur, where he got 175, and what stood out for me was the bat he used. And how old was he then? About 15 or 6, where he got 175, and what stood out for me was the bat he used. And how old was he then? About 15 or 16, and it's one of the heaviest.
Well, if you were 15, he was 15. I mean,
yeah, one of the heaviest cricket bats. One of the heaviest cricket bats I've seen ever. You can understand, you grow up and we heard about Clive Lloyd or the West Indians use heavy bats, but at the age of 15 to pick such a heavy bat, it was a Pakistani bat, Isan, if I still remember. To pick that bat and bring it down was really, really special, I thought.
Did you think, I mean, each of these three keeps coming into the book at various times and they stay in the book for a very long time. Did you think this gentleman next to you would have 300-run partnerships? This under 15 campmate of yours, you'd open the batting together for India, and then this young man, you'd make 6,000 plus runs batting together. Is it all a blur? Is it coming back now?
You see, with Saurav, we started playing together in 1984 or 85, I think. 85, we went to...
Just about turned teenagers.
I think...
He was my roommate in
14.
the MRF Base Academy. Trust me, he was. And I still remember on that Mount Road in Chennai, we two never seen each other, and he used to walk in the night. And the first night, two separate beds, and he was sleeping.
We were roommates because you didn't want to sleep alone.
Whatever. Whatever. No, in those days we didn't get single rooms, and it's an honest confession. And one night I just saw him. He got up from his bed, walked around his room, and came back to sleep. So I thought he must have gone to the toilet, because I myself was half asleep, so I'd let it go. The next night I saw the same thing again. And I asked him that night, I said, "What's happening?" He said, "Yeah, I have this issue." So I used to be awake for the rest of the night.
VVS, you were the junior most. Was there a sense of awe when you first got? You come into the book a little later, so that's why I came last to you. Was there a sense of awe when you first came in? Because by the time you came in '96, Ahmedabad, he had already made quite a few Test hundreds.
Yes, I was in awe of Sachin. I remember playing under 19s with Amol Muzumdar, and we were playing against the England A side at the Wankhede, and I slept at Amol's place. And behind his door, there was a huge picture of Amol. Amol used to literally take his blessings before going to the ground, and he used to adore him. So I heard a lot about him and Ravi Shastri from Amol, when we were growing up. And the first time I met him was in 1996. This was in Nottingham. I was playing club cricket there, and I went to the
You'd come to the team hotel.
Team hotel to meet all the players. It was a special feeling meeting him, and then at that time also I could see the kind of humility he had, because he always used to be the first one to come and talk to a youngster And someone like me who was not yet part of the Indian team, just that experience, felt, really like $1 million experience, which you would never ever dream of getting. So I think I was very fortunate that since then I was able to, build this friendship with him. And I remember even my first test match with the team, he was the captain. He just made me feel so welcome, made me feel comfortable. And it happens to all the cricketers who for the first time come into the Indian changing room. They are in awe of Sachin. Just watch him from close quarters, because all this time before coming to the Indian team, they're reading about him, they're seeing him, they're probably wanting to meet him, which is so difficult for a lot of youngsters. So I think I was in awe of him, but he made me comfortable, and that's what is important.
It is true, isn't it, that when you went out to bat in Sydney, just before you went out, you were sleeping on the dining table?
Again, that time Dada was my room partner, and this time again he was sleeping, and I was practicing my drills at night because I was going to bat the next day. I stayed awake, till almost 2:30 in the night, and I was thinking about how I'm going to bat the next day, and standing in front of the mirror, I was practicing, doing my own things, and I didn't realize that Dada was awake quietly watching me. So the next morning,
Tell me, how could
I
you
was
sleep?
sleepy next morning.
I'll just interrupt. How could you sleep when all the lights in your room was on and somebody was practicing? All you had to do was to close your eyes and wait for him to sleep.
So before going into bat, I was really sleepy, and I woke up at the same time, and I told Dada that, Dada, मैं सोने वाला हूँ थोड़ी देर के लिए. So just inside the dressing room, from where you could also watch the game, there is a big dining table there. So on that dining table I slept for a good half an hour or so. I said, अगर कुछ होता है तो बताना मेरे को. But that's where I thought, I needed to rest a little bit to be able to do something special.
Upwards of 6,000 runs, Rahul, the two of you chatted a lot together, I'm sure. Is it true that you spoke to each other in Marathi only when you were playing against Pakistan?
No, I think I guess we sort of conversed in a lot of languages. But yeah, I think sort of when we were in the middle, I think we sort of tended to speak a lot in Marathi as well. We were not really, I think you didn't need to converse very much after you batted, with him for a long time. But I remember when I first initially started batting with him, I would bat at 3 and he would come in at 4. And I was this sort of young kid, and even though he was my age, he was sort of 7 years senior. He was my captain in the 3rd test match that I played, the one at Ahmedabad, or the one at Delhi, in fact, and against Australia. And he would walk in, and I would be a bit sort of nervous. Already you're quite nervous as a youngster, and Sachin Tendulkar's coming in to bat with you. Firstly, don't get him run out, otherwise you're lynched. So that's the first thought. But then anyway, he comes in and he sort of, he'll ask you, what's happening? What do you think? And you're thinking, this is a guy who's like already the best batsman in the world. He's played a lot of, he's like scored over 10 test hundreds, or he played a lot of test matches. He's my captain. Is he taking the mickey, or do I really have to tell him, is he trying to like play the fool with me or to check me out? And so I would be a bit nervous, but in time sort of realized that was his real, humility, as Laxman mentions it. There was that eagerness when he came in to want to know what is happening, what are the wicket conditions like, what's he bowling, does he have a dusra, does he have this thing? So initially it took me a bit of time to actually muster up the confidence to actually, tell him that, I think, this is what's happening. It took me a few runs and a bit of confidence, but initially I'd be like, everything's okay, don't worry. I'm sure you'll deal with it, don't worry.
The story he tells about you in the book, VVS, when he was fighting his way through. You don't normally use the expression fighting his way through for Sachin. And we're going to talk about that in detail to Ajit later on, when he was getting his 241. And he says one of his biggest problems when he was getting to the 241, and he was in denial, I'm not going to play the drive, I'm not going to play this. And he says at the other end, this guy was hitting boundaries for fun. 178 not out partnership, he was just hitting, and he's telling himself, no, don't. And you were just screaming boundaries at the other, and you're making it difficult for him, he says.
Again, it's humility, but I still remember the chat we had at the end of the Melbourne Test match. And I still remember in the dressing room there was a separate room where we could have the television, where we could see the statistics of the players. And I remember Sachin came and both of us were alone there. And he just came and discussed. And during our career, there were a lot of occasions when we used to have these chats. And he told that he was playing brilliantly, but he was just getting out in freakish manner. If you remember, he got out down the leg side to Bretley in the first innings of Melbourne. And then we went to Sydney. He went ahead of me because he was batting at number 4. He was, I think, on 30 or 40. But what really struck me was his control. And I've never ever seen any batsman in my career who could control his instincts so much as what I saw. And I give example of that innings to everyone I talk, especially the youngsters, because usually we have game plan, usually we know what are the areas we are struggling, and we don't want to play that shots initially. But once you get in, and you're able to see the ball better, you're judging the pace of the wicket better or the bounce of the wicket better, then you start to play all your shots. But here was a person, he was on 100, Simon Catich is coming to bowl, Damian Martin is coming to bowl, and he doesn't play a single cover drive. And I've never ever experienced that or seen that before. And I mean, that's probably one of the most scintillating innings of Sachin, and which I always mention to him. The other inning was the one against Pakistan in Chennai, where he was having severe back spasm, but he still continued to play and dominate the Pakistan bowling attack. There he could get over the pain and still continue to play. And here, he was able to control his instincts and still continue to bat the way he did. And that shows what kind of shots he had in his book. He completely cut down the cover area, but still was able to get more than 200.
Sachin, was it a bit like you're fasting and he's having all the prawns and crabs at the other end?
Not just in Sydney. Generally, it was like that. Where half the world would be thinking that Laxman is going to play cover drive and he'd be hitting through mid-wicket for a boundary, and that includes, the likes of Shane Warne. I mean, I've not seen anyone play against Shane Warne, consistently hitting him against the spin on the rise. I mean, not many can do. Rather, I would say that the only one who did that consistently was him. And the special partnership between him and Jam was incredible. I mean, at the end of the third day, I remember in the evening we were all feeling low and all that.